What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 273 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Intergalactic Nemesis, Book 2, Robot Planet Rising. This is written by Jason Newlander with a different art team this time. This is David Hutchison and Lee Duhigg. The art here is a step up from what we saw in Volume 1, and I want to go ahead and reiterate and rephrase what I said in yesterday's video. I don't think that Tim Doyle is a bad artist. After I filmed yesterday's video, I even Googled some of his work, and he did some really cool pinup drawings. He did some of the Ninja Turtles, he did some Batman work that looked really awesome. I just don't know if he was as experienced in composition of a page whenever Volume 1 came out and whenever he was working on Volume 1. I am 100% certain that he has improved and grown as an artist since Volume 1 came out. This was like 5 years ago when the series began, so I think that he has improved and he has gotten better as an artist. So even though the art was the weak point of Volume 1, and it was my least favorite part of Volume 1, I do think that Tim Doyle, as an artist, has gotten remarkably better if you go and look at some of his more recent work. So I am interested in seeing some of the stuff that he has done in actual linear stories as opposed to pinup drawings, but I'm really interested in seeing where his art career has gone since this series. But this is a little bit better than what Tim Doyle did in Volume 1. I like it, but the characters still feel like the same characters. Sometimes that can be a problem, depending on how drastic of a difference you go between artists. I remember like reading about the history of Marvel Comics in the 60s, how they wanted to try and keep the artistic license kind of similar. They didn't want to go from someone who is just radically different than the artistic stable that they currently had, and you don't really see that much anymore. Now you could go from like Chris Bachalo to Alex Ross in the span of an issue, and maybe not necessarily that drastic, but you could go with a pretty drastic difference in an artist in just 2 issues of a series, and that can take you out of the reading if you're reading several issues at a time. And what I like about this artistic team is that while the art is different here, you can tell that it is a different artist. These characters still feel like the same characters, and that's important, having a continuity of art, if you will, in between 2 volumes. Another thing that I like about this volume, I mentioned in yesterday's video that this series owes a lot to Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, and even more recent things like Buckaroo Banzai, the movie from the 80s. I feel like one thing I did not mention is that while the content is definitely inspired by Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, what I didn't realize when reading Volume 1 is that also in terms of this series being very much inspired by the serials, the film serials. Buck Rogers was a film serial, and so was Flash Gordon for a time. It was also a comic strip, but there were film serials about these characters where you would have like a 9-hour film series where you would just see like an hour of it at a time. You would go to the theater, watch a little bit of it, and then you would come back the next week to watch a little bit more. And they were built around cliffhangers and building up to that big oh my goodness ending, and then you want to go and see what happens next. And they would constantly be building towards the next story. And that's something that I didn't really realize when I was reading yesterday's volume, Volume 1 of this series, because yesterday's volume felt more like a complete story. I mentioned that when I talked about it, but here we are building off of what was set up in Volume 1. The robots here are kind of the bad guys, and we also we find out that that's not exactly what's going on. They are the bad guys, but there's more to it than that. But it's stuff that was set up in Volume 1. And like I mentioned yesterday, there is a 3rd volume of the series, which I do not have, and I am 100% sure that the story, whatever story they go with, is going to be built off of what we get here. Also, we have a return of a character who I was pretty sure we were going to see this character again. The character who was sent away at the end of Volume 1, Ben Wilcock, I think. He was kind of given a farewell at the end of Volume 1, and I thought, okay, we're never going to see that character again. And I wasn't really sure how I was going to like Volume 2 because I really liked the character of Ben Wilcock. Here, spoilers, we do get to see him again, but it's done in a different way that I didn't think that they were going to do. So while they did kind of live up to my expectations of bringing him back, they did it in a way that I did not think that they were going to do. And I am glad that they did that, and I am going to try and check out, see if I can find Volume 3 somewhere, because I'm very interested to see how they're going to build up the relationship between Ben and Mary in Volume 3. So I like this volume quite a bit. I would say it's about as good as Volume 1, maybe even a little bit better, because I do think that the art, at least in terms of just conventional storytelling techniques, I think that the art is better here than what we got in Volume 1, and I think that the story kind of kicks things up a little bit too, a little bit more than Volume 1. So I think I maybe like this one a little bit more than Target Earth. But those are my thoughts on Intergalactic Nemesis Book 2. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.